Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. It's right at the stroke of noon, so I guess depending on your time zone, it really could be either way. Thank you so much for tuning in on this beautiful Earth Day. We're so excited that you've decided to spend the middle portion of your day with us. My name is Talia. I'm the Virtual Experiences Coordinator at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, and today I am connected to four experts from the museum's Science Division to talk a little bit about Earth Day in a special digital edition of our Science on the Spot program. Science on the Spot is one of our most loved programs that we usually do on the floor of the museum. If you've been to the museum in, I don't know, the last year or so, you might have gotten a chance to experience one of these wonderful events in which we bring out rarely seen and sometimes almost never seen collections items from behind the scenes out onto the floor for guests to experience and interact with. Now, collections are pretty incredible because they allow us to tell the story of species, of change over time, and today we're using some collections items to tell the story of planet Earth. All of our experts today have a couple of collections items that they have wonderful pictures of that they're going to use to talk about Earth Day, messages that we can carry with us as we move forward throughout today and into the future. And without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to them. But first, hello to our Facebook audience. If you haven't already done so, take a moment to leave us a comment. Let us know where you're watching from today. And if you have any questions, go ahead and pop those in those comments at any time. I will be watching on my handy dandy device and I will pull those questions to ask to our experts. All right. First up today to tell us about some collections items that he is very fond of and that he has a special connection to around Earth Day is our collections manager for zoology, Jeff Stevenson. Jeff, what you got?
Thank you, Talia. For the original Earth Day, some of the signs that people carried said extinction is forever. And that still resonates with me. And we have some samples of some recently extinct animals, including passenger pigeons. These pigeons once darkened the skies. There were between 5 and 8 billion birds, by some estimates, in the 1860s, and pretty much were all gone by the 19 teens in the wild. Last one, I think, died in 1914 in a zoo in Cincinnati. From billions and billions of birds to zero. And basically, they really are all gone. All the recently extinct animals. And that's one of the concerns that came out during Earth Day back 70 years ago, and 70? 50. Sorry. And that is the effects on animals. So sometimes, and what we did during the original Earth Days and that the work that people put in and the understanding led to some really great advances in protecting some animals. We have eagles now in Colorado where, and that's in part due to being able to ban the use of DDT and pesticides like that because they were very threatened. But there's still animals today that are threatened. And we have another example from our collections, which is a flightless parrot from New Zealand. It's called a kakapo. And this is a big fluffy green thing that it doesn't fly around. It just runs on the ground. It looks goofy and is a wonderful creature, but they're very, very, very endangered. So we still have animals that are endangered, and there's still a need for Earth Day.
Very good. Yes, the need to continue thinking about how we as humans can take care of our environments is especially at top of mind right now, I think. And I think that need will continue long into the future. Thank you, Jeff. And all of you watching in Facebook, you should have seen pop up on your screen photos of passenger pigeons and the kakapo in our collection. So thank you to our technical director, Kim, who is in studio and able to bring those up for you all. Awesome. Well, next, I think we should take a little journey back in time, several million years back in time, long before Earth Day was even started, and hear about a special, very tough plant from our assistant collections manager for paleontology and earth sciences, Nicole Yeagel. Nicole, what do you have to share with us today?
I'll just pop up one of my favorite fossils in our paleobotany collection. This fossil leaf is from the Hell Creek Formation. It's about 67 million years old. And the Hell Creek Formation It's one of the world's greatest dinosaur formations, but it also preserves an incredible record of the plant life that lived there. Fossil plants in general tell us a ton about Earth's environments, how they used to be, environmental conditions of all kinds, and they also just paint a really awesome picture of the world that extinct animals used to live in. This particular leaf would have grown beside T-Rex, Triceratops, duck-billed dinosaurs, feathered raptors, these cute little turtles, and you can see reconstruction of this plant kind of vining along on the bottom of this picture here. So we think that this leaf is an ancient, now extinct species of hops. Hops, the bitter flavoring in beer, seems to have grown alongside dinosaurs. And what's more is that hops belong to the hemp family, and it's more closely related to cannabis than any other group of plants. And this implies that ancient forms of cannabis also lived alongside dinosaurs. So the thing I love most about paleontology is how it puts the modern world in perspective. Members of this group of plants survived the extinction event that wiped out these non-avian dinosaurs. These plants lived alongside mammals as they evolved over millions of years to their present forms, and then for relatively mysterious reasons, some were cultivated by humans. Hops has been used in the majority of beers these days, but for the first 9,000 years of beer brewing history, it wasn't. We keep discovering and rediscovering hemp plants uses. Here's it against some modern hops. And most evidence seems to point to plants in the hemp family being originally grown for their fibers, something that has gained re-recognition. Hemp crops have a higher fiber yield and lower water needs than crops like cotton, and they make much better use of agricultural land. So that's the Earth Day connection.
Awesome. Well, that means that the next time you enjoy an IPA, not only can you think about how that plant was probably growing along some of your very favorite dinosaurs, it also confers a pretty substantial environmental benefit. Thank you for that. As a reminder to our Facebook audience, you are more than welcome to pop a question in the chat at any time. I do see one that I will pull for Mr. Jeff Stevenson toward the end of our time together from Bridget about passenger pigeons and carrier pigeons. So we'll come back to that one in a little bit. But for now, I'm going to kick it over to Dominique Alhambra, who is our collections manager for anthropology. Dominique, you have something, I have seen this specimen before in the museum. It's interesting. Tell us what you got.
It is a really, it kind of, it sent me on a journey of like research and discovery through the anthropology collections. So in our Botswana Hall on the 3rd floor, there is a case about elephant conservation, and it has an elephant footstool with a zebra covering. And it's been in there since at least the 1980s. And so we had someone from our staff ask, like, where did this come from? And so here it is in the case, and there it is close up. And I'm like, is it even real? Oh, it's real. And so I dug around in the database, and it said, yes, anthropology has a footstool. It's in storage. And I'm like, wait, what? So I went to storage, and there was a footstool. So we realized that we did not, in fact, just have one. We had a pair. And so here they are together when we brought them together. And Jeff from the zoology verified that, yes, we have a left foot and a right foot. And it was, a mystery kind of to investigate how they got here. And as far as we can tell, we didn't have a whole lot of paperwork on it. They were donated by somebody in the 1960s to the museum. The names were spelled 2 different ways. I couldn't find that person anywhere in the donor database or any old files. And one foot went to the case in the 1980s and the other one went into storage. And we just brought them back together in 2020. So it's kind of, it's a tricky collections item because it's been in the museum long enough that we own it, but it's in this gray area that because we don't have paperwork to prove like how we got it, it's in a gray area whether or not we can keep it. And we don't have any information on it at all, other than it came from Africa. And these are hunting trophies. And so we felt that the right thing to do was to send them to the Fish and Wildlife Service. They have a huge office and warehouse in Denver, where they keep confiscated trophies and products and clothing made out of illegally trafficked and poached endangered animals. And like for me, like what these feet mean to me, and for Earth Day in general, is that yes, there's this arm of the law, that there are laws in place where you're not allowed to do this, but nevertheless a market exists to continue to illegally traffic these items. And I think we work with the Fish and Wildlife Service to continue to educate folks. As long as there's a market, it will continue. So my hope for Earth Day is that someday, like, we will, like, as people, come to like a collective understanding that we want to preserve and conserve and continue to protect these endangered animals.
That's fascinating stuff. So those are literally stools made out of elephant feet with zebra hide on top. Those are certainly pieces with the story. And I have to say, I've worked around the museum long enough to know that generally speaking, we keep very good track of how many items we have and where they are. So whenever we turn out to have two of something when we thought we only had one, it's always an interesting story. All right, well, for our last special look behind the scenes today, I'd like to pass the proverbial mic now to Evelyn Bush, who is our collections manager for education collections. And Evelyn's going to be talking a little bit about something related to hunting, wildlife as well, but with a slightly different twist. So Evelyn, what do you have to share with us today?
So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the counterintuitive things, like how hunting preserves species and what role zoos actually play in the conservation of species. Most of us interact with zoos, and both zoos and hunting, in kind of a recreational way. But behind all of that is an infrastructure that's really supporting the sustenance of species around the globe. So my first picture I have to share with you all today is
Very handsome looking snow leopard.
hang on one second.
No worries.
Sorry.
No worries. While Evelyn gets that picture up, Dominique, I do have a quick question for you. We have Bridget who's wondering, are the elephant stools preserved somehow, or are they just dried out? So maybe you can give us a quick answer to that question, and then Evelyn can take it away.
As far as I can tell, they're dried out, and it's hollow. When you tap on the footstool, there's this like clunk clunk, like it's hollow. So I think they somehow dried it out with I don't know what chemicals, but they're not too heavy. They're pretty light. They're unusual. I don't know how they preserve them.
Interesting stuff. All right, Evelyn, I see a very good-looking bovid on our screen. Tell us about this handsome fellow.
So I have a couple, these two taxidermy mounts I'm going to share with you today are some of my favorite that we have in the education collections. This one is an Argali sheep. These live in the mountains between China, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan. They kind of live in the mountainous areas of Asia, all through here. And they're currently listed as threatened under the U.S. Endangered Species Act. However, going back to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service that Dominique was just talking about, U.S. Fish and Wildlife allows around 48 to 50 trophies, taxidermy mounts, to be imported into the U.S. every year. What the establishment of a game hunting system does, especially, I know the laws in Tajikistan, there's Tajikistan's law of the Species Preservation Act, that's a thing that exists, mandates that permits and associated costs for hunting all go into government distributed conservation funds for specifically Argali sheep. And we have seen populations of Argali stabilize in the last 10 years. They're still a threatened. Don't go out and like think our work here is done. They're still threatened, but populations are no longer decreasing. They are stabilizing, and it's largely due to these hunting permits and other costs associated with hunting these large sheep in the mountainous regions of Asia. This is the one that we have in the education collections, and this is as it was coming to the building just after it was donated to us by a private donor. And then I've always had a soft spot on my hat for the snow leopard. This is the snow leopard that we have in our education collections. It is still at the taxidermist studio, so if you look behind them, you'll see a bunch of other things. This is not a museum facility we're in. This is a taxidermy studio up in the warehouse district on like Havana and Peoria area. Anyway, this came from the Denver Zoo. He passed away of natural causes about 9-10 years ago. And we had the opportunity to have a taxidermy mount made from the hide so we can teach with him. And I just wanted to give a nod out to the work that the zoos do today, because if you're like me, you take your kids to the zoo, you go out and you have fun, you have a beer, you have a pizza, whatever at the zoo. It's kind of a recreation. But behind all of that is science, and zoos are often the last stand for species. It's the last opportunity they have to establish a breeding population. And snow leopards in particular in the US have been super successful with establishing that breeding population. There's about 600 snow leopards in accredited zoos across the world, and 250 of those are in US zoos. And zoos provide scientists, zoologists, opportunities to get up close and work with medicine with these species, work with breeding practices with these species, things that can be directly reapplied then out into the wild. You have a ready resource of animals to study and observe here, so you can take that knowledge you learn here and apply it directly back into the external, the species that are existing in the wild, in the mountains of Asia. So for me, the snow leopard effort here in the US actually really kind of solidifies around the conservation of species on this earth day.
Yes, indeed. Well, thank you for sharing all of those wonderful stories. I'm lucky enough, having worked at the museum for, gosh, a while now, to have gotten to see some of these incredible collections in person, but I know that not everybody has that privilege. So it's great to hear from all of you and to learn not only about the history of some of these objects, but also what they can teach us about Earth Day, about conservation, and about our planet. Now, I do see a quick question in the comments that I would love to direct to Jeff. And again, if you are watching on Facebook, if you have any questions, you are more than welcome to pop them in there. And then I have a final one that I will ask to each of you in turn. So Jeff, let me find that question for you. This question is from Bridget, wondering, what is the difference between a passenger pigeon and a carrier pigeon? Are they related?
Thanks. That's a good question, Bridget. The names sound familiar, and the adjective carrier and the adjective passenger, but carrier pigeons are a breed of the common rock pigeon or rock dove, what you know as a pigeon that you see around the city. They just have been bred specially to return to a home range. And so you can send them off and then they'll come back, or you can take them somewhere, put a little message on them, on their leg, and then send that message back to, say you're fighting a world war and you want to tell secrets on how the front is going, and you send something off to England while you're in the trenches in France. Sorry, that was very divergent. But passenger pigeons were a completely different genus, a different taxonomic group from the regular pigeon that we all know of. Just completely different. The closest living relative to passenger pigeons, I believe, is a band-tailed pigeon. But they are very different.
Very good. So they are related, but very distantly related. They're not the close cousins that we might imagine them to be, given that they are both called pigeons. Great question, and thank you for that answer. I do see one more. I will send this one to Evelyn. Are there rules for how Argali sheep can be hunted?
Yes, I don't know the specifics behind them, but all permits, whether you're taking game in South Africa and Kenya or in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Tajikistan, like there's permits that you have to apply for. And one thing I didn't mention, I'm looking back at my notes here, one thing I didn't mention about the Argali sheep is that the numbers, the quotas that people are taking are informed by zoological scientists. Right now, there's probably about 25,000 Argalis living in the mountains of the Asian steppe area. And per year, the scientists have determined that 85 breeding males are allowed to be taken out of that 25,000. That's 1% of breeding males. So you have to apply for these permits. These permits are informed by science, and that science is working to manage the population of the sheep.
That does actually sound very familiar to how large game hunting works here in Colorado. Interesting stuff. All right, well, I do not see any more questions in the Facebook comments. So unless one pops in at the very last moment, I would like to direct one last question to each one of you. So we'll go in the order that we presented in. We'll ask Jeff first, Nicole, you will answer next, then Dominique, and then Evelyn. What are you doing to observe Earth Day today? Or if any of our viewers don't have any plans or haven't had any special ideas for how to celebrate our planet today, what's something that they could do? Jeff, are you doing anything special in observance of Earth Day today?
This,
There you go.
but also today was our regular recycle day, and we have a wonderful recycle program where I live, and our recycle bin is usually 3/4 full, and our normal trash bin is 1/4 full, and I've been noting that as a plus. The staying at home and working remotely has meant that I've driven a lot less. So while it's not exactly for today's Earth Day, it is kind of like I'm joining everybody else and not driving too much right now.
That's an important step to be able to take, and congratulations on sending a lot of your waste to recycling rather than to the landfill. Nicole, what are you doing to observe Earth Day today?
A lot of the same things Jeff's doing. That I was thinking the same thing, how this kind of the whole unfortunate situation right now in a sick kind of way is also like an observance of Earth Day, where we are all just hanging out and using less resources, but and this presentation. But it also occurred to me that I'd already made plans this late afternoon to go pick up a whole bunch of compost from our local composting station up here in Boulder. So that's going to be my celebration.
Love compost.
So I compost. We pay for a composting pickup here, and I'm going to go get some back. Put it in my garden.
Very good, very good. Dominique, how about you?
I haven't been outside in a couple of days, and I'm fortunate enough to be living pretty close to a really lovely park out here, Bluff Lake Nature Center. And I was thinking about like going for a walk with all of the necessary and precautions, of course. But yeah, I would like to be outside for Earth Day.
Very good. Evelyn, how about you?
So I just bought some chicken wire, and I'm going to go wrestle some chicken wire and build some compost bins.
What a great
I'm
way
probably
to
going to look
not
like
only
I got into a fight with a cat, but anyway.
what a great way to not only celebrate the planet, but also kill some time. What a great use of an afternoon. Speaking for myself, I live in beautiful Jefferson County, so I will be taking advantage of the trail that I live very close to. I live right by the Clear Creek Trail, and perhaps some of the open spaces. So everybody out there who's watching, take some time to get outside today, breathe some air into your lungs, go listen to some birds sing, and marvel at this beautiful planet. Thank you to all of you, to Jeff, Nicole, to Dominique, and to Evelyn for taking the time to share your expertise, tell us some stories from behind the scenes at the museum. And thank you to all of you for tuning in to watch. Stay curious, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.